It's a little past 10 p.m. on April 14th, 1865. President Abraham Lincoln is seated in the presidential box at Ford's Theater, enjoying a play with his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, and their guests, Major Henry Rathbone and his fiancée, Clara Harris. The Civil War has just ended, and the nation is hopeful about a new era of peace. But outside the theater, a deadly plan is already in motion. John Wilkes Booth, a well-known actor and Confederate sympathizer, is making his way through the back hallways of the theater. He knows this place well. He's performed here many times. Tucked inside his pocket is a small, single-shot .44 caliber Derringer pistol. His heart is pounding. Tonight, he is about to commit the most infamous assassination in American history. Booth's hatred for Lincoln didn't form overnight. He was raised in Maryland on a farm that used enslaved labor. His father was a famous Shakespearean actor, and his older brother, Edwin Booth, also became a renowned stage performer. While Edwin remained loyal to the Union, John Wilkes Booth's sympathies were with the South. Years before the assassination, the brothers had made a deal. Edwin would perform in northern theaters like New York and Boston, while John Wilkes would take the southern stages. At first, John resented it, but eventually, he embraced the Southern way of life and saw himself as part of its noble traditions. He strongly believed in slavery, once writing that it was a blessing for Black people. This devotion to the Confederate cause only grew stronger as the war raged on. By 1865, Booth had already been involved in several plots against Lincoln, including a failed plan to kidnap him. But now that the South had lost, Booth's rage reached its peak. Killing Lincoln, he believed, was the only way to save the South's honor. Booth knew Lincoln would be at Ford's Theater that night, watching Our American Cousin. As the play reached a scene known for a big laugh from the audience, Booth saw his chance. The president's bodyguard had left his post. He was next door at the Star Saloon, enjoying a drink. The door to Lincoln's box was unguarded. Booth slipped inside, using a wooden wedge to jam the door shut behind him, slowing any attempts to help Lincoln. Booth was worried because this .44 caliber Derringer pistol carries only one shot. Booth will have to get as close as he possibly can to the president. He took out his pistol, aimed carefully, and fired. A loud crack echoed through the theater. For a moment, the audience thought it was part of the play. But then, Mary Todd Lincoln's screams rang out. "The president has been shot!" Chaos erupted. Major Rathbone jumped to stop Booth, but Booth slashed him with a knife and leaped over the railing, landing on the stage below. He shouted, "Sic semper tyrannis," Latin for, "thus always to tyrants." He then ran off into the night. Lincoln sat slumped in his chair, blood seeping from the wound in his head. Dr. Charles Leal, a young Army surgeon who happened to be in the audience, rushed to the president's side. He found that Lincoln was still alive but barely breathing. The bullet had lodged deep in his brain. Moving Lincoln to the White House was too dangerous. The rough, unpaved roads could worsen his condition. Instead, a group of soldiers carried him across the street to a boarding house, where they placed him in a small bed. Ironically, it was said that Booth himself had once napped in that very bed. All night, doctors did what little they could. They removed blood clots to ease his breathing, but there was no saving him. Lincoln's body was failing. At 7:22 a.m. on April 15th, 1865, the 16th President of the United States took his final breath. News of Lincoln's death spread quickly, and the country was in shock. Just days earlier, people had been celebrating the end of the Civil War. Now, the man who had led them through it was gone. As for Booth, he managed to evade capture for 12 days, hiding in the countryside before being cornered in a barn in Virginia. Refusing to surrender, he was shot and killed by Union soldiers. The assassination of Abraham Lincoln was one of the most tragic moments in American history. But beyond the act itself, it was a symbol of the deep divide that still ran through the nation. Even in victory, the scars of war remained, and Lincoln's death was a painful reminder that peace would not come easily.